Hello, beautiful people of Egham, as of today, at least. Hello, everyone. We're here for an in-conversation with a very interesting poet, musician, and all-around excellent artist. So I'd like everyone to please give a very warm welcome to the stage, Luigi Coppola! Come on, we can do better than that. Bit more, bit more.
Good afternoon, folks. If I point to you individually, I want you to say the word no.
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 Perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Lovely nose. If I do this, can everyone, especially ones at the back as well, whisper the word maybe? Maybe. Beautiful. Give me chills. And then it's a very hot day to do that as well. And if I do this, folks, can you shout out the word yes?
Yes.
Superb. This is called the origins of the word
Yes.
In the beginning, the word was
No.
the word came from nothing. The word
No.
came from nowhere. Was all. Was the way. Perfect. Was it. There was nothing. Naught. Zero. Absence.
No.
Whatever the Latin for is. Let alone anything. Simply. Sublimely. You've just walked in. That's so unfair. That's so unfair. It's the word no, but thank you anyway. Simply no, limitlessly no. However, trying to spell itself, the word
No.
cracked. The word came from nothing. Then suddenly came into being. Was never quite sure of itself. Was definitely not, but was certainly not anything defined. Was a delay. Was desperate. Was hiding a half-eaten chocolate bar in a half-full pocket, and was always in the shadow of one night, cold and twilightless, and met and saw something to cancel out in one another, and shook hands. Can you find someone you don't know and shake their hand, say hello, introduce yourself? Hi there, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thanks so much for being front row. I saved you a seat there. Thanks so much. Extra points if you get up like Adam and introduce to someone you don't know. I think Adam's done this before. He doesn't lack confidence.
Everyone.
No one may be met, shook hands, and created out of their own doubtful negativity the word, the idea of, the concept of, and then, my children. Suddenly anything seemed possible, all from the word
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Woo.
Thank you very much, Luigi. I feel like we're in an evangelical church. This is brilliant. Well done to get the crowd involved. Wonderful stuff. So just a quick introduction. Good afternoon. I had to think of the time of day there. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Luigi, I feel like he needs no introduction. He's an incredible artist, but he's a graduate of Warwick University's English and Creative Writing programme. He's built an impressive reputation through publications in leading poetry journals such as Magma, The Rialto, Rattle and Ink, Sweat and Tears, as well as recognition from competitions such as the Bridport Prize, the National Poetry Competition, and the Poetry Archive World View Prize. All correct. Correct so far. The internet can not always be a reliable source of information. He has performed everywhere, from the South Bank Centre, Tate Modern, to Glastonbury Festival. He was selected for South Bank Centre's New Poets Collective, and he also creates wonderful music under the name The Only Emperor. Most recently, he's published his debut collection, Even Gods Get Distracted Sometimes. Please come and see Luigi after the show, and I'm sure he'll sign a copy. Yeah, he'll sign a copy. And we're going to be exploring the influences, experiences, and the ideas that shape his work. So thank you very much, everyone. A big round of applause for Luigi again, please.
Thank you, folks. Yes, the mic is working. Great stuff. Thanks so much.
No problem at all. So, Luigi, Kieran, it all starts at the beginning. I wanted to ask you first, what your first experience was with poetry that felt personal as opposed to academic. Because everyone thinks about that academic experience first. What first felt personal?
It was within a school, but not academic. So I was about 14 years old, and I was sitting at a random school desk in my high school, and someone had scratched, I assume with a knife, into a wooden table just on the side, this line: "They fuck you up, your mum and dad." Now, I had no idea where that was from, but it kind of blew my mind. I loved the rhythm of it. I loved the sort of hidden metaphorical cliche that you didn't even think about it. The fact that it talked about mum and dad, and it stuck with me and kind of blew my mind. I can't remember what the lesson was, but I remember that scratched in there. I had no idea where it was from. It's got to be 3 or 4 years later. I was doing English A level, and I discovered Philip Larkin, "This Be the Verse," and it became one of my favourite poems. And it clicked that that's what that was. And the fact that some ruffian had scratched it into a table made it even more poetic for me. Partly because Philip Larkin, he said success was people talking about your work in a pub. In a school is probably second best, but that really struck me, and I started writing my own work. This is over 30 years now, hence the grey in my beard. And yeah, that was my first experience. So discovering a line of poetry, not knowing it was a line of poetry, because it spoke such truth. And I really like my parents.
Excellent. I'm sure they would have been happy to hear that. Was there a moment? Was that the moment that you first realised, like, I might be a poet?
Right. I was writing poems, but I don't think I was a poet, because no one will ever read those teenage angst poems that are literally in a box in my loft somewhere. So I think as a career, there's been different touchstones. So discovering that line, writing my own sort of teenage poetry, it's a love poem, unrequited love, so on and so on. And then discovering performances a few years later. So again, this is late 90s maybe. I was at Glastonbury Festival, and I went there for the bands. And I started walking around on the Thursday or the Friday morning before the bands had really started. And I was walking through the green fields, which is like the hippie section. And I discovered the Poetry and Words tent. And I didn't leave for 3 days. I missed all the bands I went to see. But I was 17, 18, and I got up on stage. I did the open mic. And so even writing my first poems and then reading them out came very close. And they've always been intertwined for the next few decades. I got in with the Involvers. Pat West used to run it, who was a fantastic poet. She graciously let me be on the bill the second and third year. I was hosting, running the open mic there, and it was just fantastic. And that sort of begun. And those years I saw John Hegley, Phil Jupitus, Murray Lupton Young. I saw Atomic Lip, which Joel Taylor used to be part of, the first poetry supergroup. And they sort of got me involved in performance poetry as well. After that, it's like being first published in a magazine. The first time you're paid for a poem, I think I've still got that 20 quid in a drawer that I got paid from a poetry magazine. That's decades ago now.
No longer legal tender.
Exactly. No, yeah, probably isn't. I should have changed it earlier. Where were you 20 years ago? And then, meeting other poets, but being booked for somewhere for the first time, being part of a collective, performing at various size stages, no matter how small, getting a publication, a first collection up and running. So yeah, all those different moments in that career have all sort of meant something in some way.
Excellent. So that actually answered my next question that I had planned, which was about which writers influenced you to become the poet you are today. But I want to ask where that teenage angst came from. Mine was Catcher in the Rye. Was there anything that specifically influenced that teenage angst?
My first school used to teach Catcher in the Rye to year 9s, 13 and 14-year-olds. Blew their minds away of that kind of writing. But yeah, we can talk about that for ages. That's a different panel. So, what was the question?
Where did your teenage angst come from? What was most influenced by it?
I mean, as cliched it is, it was unrequited love. I fancied a girl, so I wrote a love poem, and I gave it to her as well. She didn't say anything afterwards, avoided my gaze, and that was it. But I think they're quite normal, happiness and sadness, extreme emotions when you're a teenager, which makes me think of Wordsworth and how poetry is extreme emotions recollected in tranquility. And the tranquility is what's missing in teenage poetry. You've got that raw emotion. I think Dakota was talking about that sort of expunging of emotion. But when you're young, you can't control it, and it just comes out. And that's where craft comes in. That's where practice. That's where someone being honest and telling you that your poems are crap, so that you reflect and you feed back and you improve as you go along.
Excellent. Thanks, Luigi. What did studying creative writing at Warwick give you, and what did it fail to give you?
I loved my time at Warwick. Let's start at that. But of course, there's ups and downs. The biggest thing from Warwick was community and meeting other like-minded poets. I'm the child of Italian immigrants. Poetry was so far down the list. My parents owned a chip shop. It was about survival. It's not about art. And because of their support, I'm able to live this kind of, dare I say, middle-class life when they came from a very working-class background. And meeting other creatives, and I've got lifelong friends there that we still talk and we still meet up and we still read each other's poetry. Also meeting my future wife on the very first day of university. It's another whole story. Thank you. It wasn't very good luck for her, but very good luck for me. So I think first off, community, and also delving into the classics, which I feel sometimes, especially for modern poets, that feels like a dirty word. But I feel like to be a good poet, you have to be a good reader. There's no way around it. Because if you don't read, you're going to make the same mistakes. Or, even worse, you're just going to repeat what someone else has said. And you can't avoid that if you don't know what other people have said. So I think community and learning to be a good reader which helps being a good writer.
And what did Warwick fail to teach you?
Financial security. Not to do a creative writing degree in this economy. I think that there's the other side of being enamoured with the classics and not necessarily being open to more modern poetry. I think Bradley was talking about the performance side of it and how that's seen the spoken word, seeing whatever words people use. The irony being that poetry began as an oral art form before the written word anyway. So to dare to call spoken word less than page poetry is just ridiculous. And I think academia can do that and look down on that because it's a closed circuit. It's its own ecosystem. I'm sure that's changed because I went to university 25 years now, so I think it's certainly opened up more.
Well, I mean, you say it's changed, but Dakota up here earlier spoke about submitting that wonderful piece of free-verse poetry and getting a bad mark on it because it doesn't conform to the standards of what more, I think, academic institutes try to teach. So that was really insightful.
Yeah, I'm sure that still exists.
So to move on to your influences, which poets do you return to the most often?
Philip Larkin, who is, as a personality, problematic. It's a bit like being a Michael Jackson fan or a Pablo Picasso fan. And it's such a difficult conversation, art versus artist, and how that affects you. Sorry for any Gary Glitter fans out there. Were there any? No, that's another conversation. Ted Hughes, Charles Bukowski, Langston Hughes, who was an incredible early 20th century Renaissance Brooklyn Harlem poet, who is, you read it now and his poetry still speaks about race conflict and society. It's just superb. Langston Hughes, 100%. There's a few other poets, still alive. Kay Ryan in America, the most sensational short form poet. And in her readings, she reads the poem, which takes like 10 seconds, then she'll talk for 10 minutes about it, and then read it again. It's just sensational. Kay Ryan, American poet. Alice Oswald, contemporary British poet, is superb on the page and a great reader as well. But yeah, Philip Larkin, I keep coming back to. And Charles Bukowski as well. And such a horrible, horrible person. And it's all video documentary with Bukowski, how horrible he was. Like drunkenly, they're all on YouTube. But his words are so powerful. Yeah.
You're speaking to a massive Bukowski fan. So yeah, I completely agree. But that leads on me onto Do you find it difficult to separate the art and the art? Have a sip. Have a sip. Do you find it difficult to separate the art and the artist?
Personally, no, because I can ignore the artist completely. And I'm a firm believer that if I restrict it to poetry, the reader is more important than the poem, and the poem is more important than the poet. The poet is way down on the list. 1970s critical theory of the author is dead. The author is dead. As soon as you read the work, it's yours. You own it, and it's your interpretation that's so much more important. Maybe more important than the actual poem itself, because it's your connection to it and what you think and feel and where it takes you. I think is so important.
Excellent.
I've really put myself down, haven't I? Like,
Yeah.
you're more important than the poem, and the poem is more important than me. But that's what I believe.
I think having that sort of self-awareness, being able to look at it from a point of view that poetry is bigger than yourself is a really important thing as a poet, though, right? Is there a poet that you admire, but you would never want to write a poem like them?
Just like, maybe last month, I saw Joel Taylor that Bradley was mentioning, Kate Tempest as well. Sensational writers, and they speak such truth about their experiences that I love hearing it. It would feel like appropriation if I tried to write in their style or tried to write about their subject matter. And I think that extends to all writers. There's the cliche of write what you know, which isn't, it's a rule of thumb. You should experiment as much as possible. But I think authenticity came up in previous discussions as well, being true to yourself. You can appreciate someone from across the world. I think Susanna was talking about, getting feedback from a workshop in India the whole time. It's just completely different cultures coming together, and we're allowed to appreciate it without appropriating it, which historically Britain isn't great at, but
British Museum would like a word. So, in that vein, what for you is the best way to discover new poetry in the modern age?
well, Instagram came up a lot in discussions, and it's opened such a massive world. So straight away you can discover, if you want to label them Insta poets or just poets, that's your decision whether you appreciate those poets or not. A library is a great place to start. Being an English teacher, thank you. A whoop for libraries. They're such amazing places, and they will disappear if we don't use them / keep them out of the hands of the powerful people out there. Going to live events. I live near London. There's at least 1.5 or 2 poetry events every day in London. And the further you go out, it might be once a week or once a month, but you can get to live places 100%. So the online world and on the stage somewhere, even if it's a pub, if it's on the street somewhere. Hopefully meeting Bradley with his typewriter somewhere.
That's the dream. Excellent, thank you, Luigi. So I want to move on to the craft itself. What a big scary set of words.
The 90s witches film.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm too young to know what he's on about. I'm just gonna. Sorry.
I'll be the old man. That's fine. Play to your strength.
What usually arrives first to you in your mind? Before you've even sat down to write a poem, what comes first? An image, a line, a rhythm, an idea? Both for poetry and music. What comes first?
Great question. I think through the years it's changed. As a teenager, it was emotions, like you feel something and then you have to express it. Later on, it comes the written word. You might be responding to other poets and other writers, a newspaper article you see, a ekphrastic writer where you see a painting. You're inspired by the external as opposed to the internal. As I've got older, I'm starting to run out of things to write about myself. So you find ever more varied external stimuli, and I think that's so important because I think Adrian Mitchell, Liverpool poet, said that most people ignore poetry because most poetry ignores people. And in later interviews, he said that the times have changed, but I think there's still a truth in that, where poets any art form has to respond to the world. If you have writer's block, go to a news site, read an article about anything that's sounds important and write something based on it. And that way you're engaging with the world. So I think, depending upon who you are, what stage you're at, your stimulus, whether it's internal or external, can come from different places. Plug. My debut collection with Mark Shuttleworth, the artist, and my stall's over there, that's a 15-year collaboration where I've taken inspiration from his art, he's taken inspiration from my words. So that kind of went the whole range of internal, external to collaborating with someone on a body of work. So, finding those sources of inspiration. Yeah, definitely.
You said about writing about the news. Do you think that poetry is inherently political? Because that's a big discussion these days about whether poetry and music are inherently political. I'm going to stay apolitical on it, but I'd love to know your opinion.
I will give an anecdote about it. Okay, so a poem is written. It's a very short poem. It is called The Red Ball. The red ball rolls and bounces down the stairs. That's the whole poem. A professor at university reads it with Marxist criticism. It's about communist rule and the decay of society. Yes? A feminist will read it. It's about menstrual cycles and how that affects our environment. A parent will read it, and it's about letting go of a child. Someone in the middle of a war will see blood dribbling downstairs and the chaos and destruction that war creates. And a child will read it as a ball rolling down some stairs. It's the same poem. And maybe the writer didn't mean it to be political, but you can read it from a Marxist, feminist, post-colonial interpretation, or you could be a child and appreciate the image of a ball rolling downstairs and the visceral nature of the sound of it. And that's it. So for me, everything is political. Everything is, and everything isn't. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and whether something is political or not is up to us. You could take someone's political speech and say, what a load of rubbish. That doesn't apply to me. Or you can take an image of a ball and make that political. That sounds such a cop-out, but I think, it's in the beholder's decision whether it's political or not.
I think that was an incredible answer for a horrible question. So
I'm sure I stole that from a previous professor of mine. Thank you.
That was an incredible answer.
All the rest were rubbish, right? That was the only good one. Is that what you're saying?
There was a conversation earlier on with Bradley that mentioned, a poem is never finished. Do you feel the same way? How do you know if a poem is done?
100%. So, I can't remember who said it, but a poem is never finished. It's only abandoned. And I can speak from my own personal experience. I've had poems that I've written 10 years, 15 years ago, and I reread them, and then I change a comma, or I change a word, or I scrap things. Marianne Moore's poem Poetry went from 4 lines to 100 lines, back to 4 lines. I too dislike it. There's quite a famous line from it. It's never finished. It's only abandoned. And you decide whether you abandon it. Maybe that's for your personal reason. And, depending upon who reads it and in 100 years' time, hopefully, and how they respond to it, then that means that poem grows and becomes something else as well, beyond the poet. The poem being more important than the poem. Again, another cop-out answer, but, abandoned.
Cool. And I think as well, being a performance poet, it's especially ever changing because you always have those fluffs and those little, and sometimes it's a change in a poem is born from a mistake in performance that you think, oh, actually, that was quite good. So performance. Do you write differently, knowing that a poem may eventually be performed, or does it influence the writing from the get-go in the sense of that it's going to be performed?
So I definitely influence the poem in redrafting. However, the first draft, the poem is still more important than the poem, and the poem knows what it wants to be, and it is what it is. Michelangelo talked about the angel is in the marble. He would take a block of marble, and God had put the angel in it already. All he did was chip away the bits that weren't needed. So he didn't even consider himself an artist, he was just a medium for God. Now, I'm personally agnostic, but there's an element of truth in that as well. You might write your first draft of a poem. The poem knows more than you do, and it knows what it wants to be. And if you dare try to make it into a performance poem when it's not a performance poem, or the other way around, of course, it wants to be read out loud, but you keep it in a drawer, you're doing that poem a disservice because it knows what it wants to be. Now, of course, you can direct it and you can guide it. And what you said about performance, I think, is so interesting because that poem I started off with, applause. That's gone well and that's gone badly, and I would do it exactly the same way, but in a different place with a different group of people, a different time. I'm in a slightly different mood. I've had more or less alcohol. Depending upon how it's presented, it could completely change whether the poem's successful or not as well. So even that's beyond your control. Doing the exact same performance, but getting crickets instead of applause. Title of my autobiography, maybe. Yeah.
Excellent. So obviously being a poetry event, we have spoken mainly about poetry. However, Luigi's an incredibly talented musician as well, working under the name The Only Emperor. Where do poetry and music intersect for you?
There's a Venn diagram. For me, the Venn diagram, there's poetry in the middle, and then there's page poetry, performance poetry, and then music. And we've all got singers and songwriters that we love. And their best lyrics, they're just poetry. In fact, their lyrics are better poetry than most poetry. Leonard Cohen started off as a poet and couldn't make any money from it. And he said, stuff this. And it picked up a guitar because he wanted more people to read his poetry. And then he becomes an incredible musician. Same with Bob Dylan, for example. They all start off with poets, troubadours, as Bradley was talking about earlier as well. So I think there's a Venn diagram. It's all overlapped. I said earlier as well, poetry historically is an oral art form. And there's a Marxist theory about how capitalism can only sell art if it's boxed, if it's labelled, if it's divided and cut up. As soon as you can't define it, you can't sell it. And I think that's important for creatives to remember. You want to collaborate, you want to have the vision. What's the difference between a poem and a song lyric? What's the difference between if you have music or you have a dancer on stage physically interpreting your poetry at the same time? I can't wait to try that out at some point. And the reverse striptease might be a call for that, who knows? Callback. And just experimenting with that Venn diagram and how far that goes. If you go back to Greek theatre, you would have poets and the chorus and performers and mimes and theatre, and it would all be mashed up together, and that would be great. Instead of saying to someone, "Do you want to come to a poetry reading?" and then they say no. But if you ask them to a music festival or to the cinema, they're more likely to say yes. What division is it? The Odyssey is a perfect example. Starting off as an epic poem, and now it's a global phenomenon. Christopher Nolan, which I'm a big fan of. Although he's got some criticism, hasn't he, from the writing? That's really interesting. But yeah, no divisions in art.
Excellent.
Is the tagline.
Yeah, I think that's great as well. It's really poignant about how the best lyrics are poetry, because I think now all the time, So what, to pivot a little bit, what happens in your mind when you're writing an ekphrastic poem?
I love ekphrastic writing, whether it's just looking at a random painting or a sculpture or a performance piece and then writing a poem based on that. I love that because you're engaging with something. It's that external stimuli, and it forces you out of your comfort zone. Because if you hadn't have seen that picture or seen that play or heard that song, it wouldn't be in your subconscious and you would just write the poem that's in you. But having all those different influences comes in, improves and develops that diverse experience that we can all have just by walking down the street, for example, and bringing that into your work. So ekphrastic is an example of trying to engage with the world as much as possible. Whether that's one particular artist with a 15-year collaboration, or going to one of the great things about Britain, the free museums and galleries that you can go into, and there's just a million ways to be inspired from that.
Absolutely. Some of my most productive days of writing are going to an art museum and seeing what happens. So, uh, I wanted to move on to speak about poetry in the current world, in the modern climate. Um, do you think that poetry is currently in a healthy place in Britain specifically?
The short answer is yes, because it's so open and you can do what you like. And there's the online world, which is as free as possible. Yes, there's arguments about the algorithm and how you would get that out there, but nothing stops you from pressing that plus and uploading something. And I find that the best content also is recordings from live events as well, as opposed to. But it's not my experience working just recording something at home, only because I love the live setting so much. If people can make that work, that's fantastic. But for me, I prefer recording when there's an audience and then using that video online, perhaps. So there's that side of it, and I think there's the traditional barriers of publication are breaking down. There's still an elitist eco structure of publishing. That's still there. Very old white men, I suppose. Wait, aren't I old and white? No. Okay. And but there's so many opportunities, for both live on page, and so I would highly recommend self-publishing. I went the other route, so I had my book published with Broken Sleep Books, which I was very proud of last year, and then I produced a self-published booklet where that first poem come from, Say Yes to Poetry, because I wanted something cheap and easy and self-made. So I went sort of both routes. But if you're worried about access to poetry, you've got to be in it to win it. Are you submitting to magazines? Are you submitting to competitions? Are you reading at events? Are you publishing something and giving it out to people if you can? And if money is a barrier, just print out one copy of your poem and share it with people and get them to take photos. It costs that way. There's no financial barrier to getting your poetry out there. Go to a library and use their internet again. So overall, yes, I think it's in a healthy place. That might not be true in lots of pockets and groups of people, but I think you got to be in it to win it. You got to get out there and do it. Definitely.
Do you have a personal strategy for dealing with rejection from publication? Because as someone myself that's only recently started putting my work out there to publications, it does sting a little bit. I used to be in arts, performing arts, and it never stung as much getting a rejection as it does with your poetry because it's so personal, right? So do you have any methods that you use particularly to deal with that, or is it just a bygone thought?
I can only speak for myself. Time. I'm a big submitter to magazines and journals and poetry. I get a rejection email. I'll probably just got one right now. I get a rejection email every day, and it might sting at first, but it's like someone like karate when you're stabbing water and then sand and then rocks and then glass. You will build up that tolerance and you won't care. Submit without submitting. They don't control it, and it's just one person's opinion anyway. It's easier said than done because, like you said, it's very personal. But there's also, has anyone heard of rejection therapy? You get this with charity workers on the street all the time, and there's that process where you get rejected. People say no. People say F you. They just walk off. They blank you, and it hurts. It's painful at the start. Eventually, you don't care. It won't matter. Charity workers don't care if you say no because you're just going to walk on. They're doing it 100 times so that one person will engage. The problem with that is that you have to get rejected by 99 people before you find that one person. Do you have to submit your poem to 100 editors before one of them takes it up? And you've got to decide whether that's worth it then. Do you want to deal? Can you accept and just ignore those 99 rejections so that you get that one acceptance or not? Again, you've got to be in it to win it. And I think with age, it's also being old and not caring what people think. That's a very old person thing. And obviously, some old people take that too far, and they tell you things that you don't want to hear. But you have to push through that. I think rejection therapy. Just get past it, and then you'll win at the end.
Was your first rejection therapy your teenage angst poem?
God, I'm rejecting myself now thinking about it.
I'm gonna want to see that at some point. I think the first time I ever saw you online, Luigi, was a video filmed. Was it by London Bridge or by South Bank? It was outside somewhere, and you were just performing on the street, and it was just like the most wonderful thing I'd ever seen. Um, I think more people need to do that. Get out and perform out and about. What do you think of that?
100%, 100%. So there's so many different routes to poetry. Are you a page poet and you don't want to talk to anyone? You just want people to read your poems. That's fine. It's that Venn diagram, and none of it's mutually exclusive. Write your poem for a magazine, and then I dare you go out on the street and ask a random stranger, "Would you like a free poem?" Of course, 9 times out of 10 they'll say no, and worse maybe. But one person will stop and hear you out, or go to a pub, or go to a poetry open mic and just read your work and see what happens. And the two books I have, one is traditional publishing, and it has the space, and it works really well in poetry readings, poetry festivals, like this wonderful one here. But go out on the street, and most people are not going to pay 10, 15, 20 pound for a poetry collection. They might give you a fiver for a booklet that you can self-publish and you can give a free poem to. And if you give it free to someone, that's fine as well, depending upon your finances. And I wanted something like that is quick and easy, because most people ignore poetry, because most poetry ignores people. So as long as your poetry and you as a poet are not ignoring people and engaging them, there is a market there. And it might not be a financial market perhaps, but in terms of sharing and getting your work out there, I think that's so important. I think I know the piece, the video you're talking about. I walked up to a family. It was a mum, a dad, a daughter, and I said, "Hi there, would you like a free poem?" And 9 people before that said, "No, weirdo, get away from me." This family were really open to it, and they wanted to hear it. And the kid was in the video. Yeah, it was just lovely, and sharing that work and connect. We extended that connecting on Instagram, for example. I think that's so important, and taking out. And then that harks back to troubadours and wandering minstrels and sharing your art in public as much as possible. When you think about it, recordings, whether it's audio or visual, has only existed for a century or so in terms of like mass marketing as well. Before that, everything was personal engagement. If you want to be a musician, you didn't record an album, you went to play live somewhere. And that's the same with poets, and the landscape is very different now. But there's nothing quite like connecting with people, definitely.
Absolutely. So quick fire questions, if you don't mind. I'll let you have a sip first. So, what's your favourite word?
Love.
Love.
That's
Oh,
so
how
corny.
sweet. Jesus. What's your least favourite word?
I don't like rump.
Rump.
Yeah. It doesn't seem very dignified.
Plosive P on the
Yeah,
end.
the plosive P as well. Messes with the mic. You don't want that. You don't want an explosive rump.
And what sound or noise do you love the most?
Nice size. It's good.
Yeah? And what sound or noise do you hate?
I like a squeaking chair, or someone's phone giving directions while someone's doing a conversation. That might be really annoying.
Call back.
Hopefully you got to where you need to be.
I also did have a squeaky chair in there.
Oh,
and it was really annoying. I had to swap chairs. What book do you return to when life becomes complicated? If any.
Collected works of Philip Larkin. In terms of prose, Remains of the Day, Shiguru, he's an incredible writer. And I don't know if I feel kindred spirit to a repressed butler, But yeah, that book I highly recommend. Remains of the Day. Brilliant film. Brilliant
And
film with Anthony Hopkins as well, Emma Thompson. Great film. And Chris, Superman. Huh? Oh, Hugh Grant as well. Yes, he's brilliant in that as well. Christopher Reeves. Yeah, one of his last roles before his accident. He's superb in it as a rich American. Incredible book, incredible film.
excellent. And my last quick fire question: what quality do you admire the most in another poet or musician?
This feels very self-serving. They should be good listeners and like listen to other. This is what I really irks me about poets. Like, imagine a musician, a guitarist, said to you, "Oh, I don't listen to other musicians. I don't go to other gigs. I don't listen to any music except my own." That musician is not going to get anywhere. You get that a lot with poets though, that don't read enough, and and I was one of those poets. 100%. You become so obsessed with your own work. But being a good listener, I think, and experiencing other creatives as much as possible.
I think reading and writing go hand in hand. Like you said earlier, you can't. They inform one another, and I think that's really important. I'm just looking at the time. Got 5. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one more question, Luigi, and then you wanted to do another piece.
Yeah, but one more question. I'll do a poem and then take a question.
Awesome. If we've got time. You've worked across page poetry, live performance, music, visual collaboration, and teaching. When you strip all of that away, what is it that poetry allows you to do that no other form does?
Wow.
Good question.
I think poetry can speak a truth, unbiased, better than any other art form. I love dance, I love theatre, I love film, I love music, obsessed with music. But there's a purity to poetry in terms of communication because it just uses the words. It's so accessible, and if you speak that language, you understand it, and you can do it yourself as well. So how poetry can speak a truth more plainly than any other art form.
Excellent. What a wonderful answer. You're full of them. You're full of them.
I'm full of a lot of things.
That brings us towards the end of the conversation. Luigi's going to perform a quick piece.
If we've got 5 minutes, why don't we do the questions first if there's time? Because you're so much more important than the poet. If I've got time to do another poem.
Hang on 5 minutes.
Hang on 5.
How many questions? Yeah, let's take the questions first, because I don't want to run out of time with that.
So, questions, please.
Can you compare excitement and satisfaction across all of the mediums, like publishing, self-publishing, getting published, publishing a video, handing out something in the street?
Great question. For me personally, it's that street interaction that probably has my highest points. There was nothing quite as euphoric as like getting that email and saying, "Oh, we'd like to publish your book," which you don't quite believe at the time. So maybe that is quite high. But then, that interaction, just reading one poem to one person on the street, can be so powerful. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for Luigi?
Oh, way at the back.
Way at the
Jack,
back.
is it?
Can you shout, or do you want to come up here for the mic?
You mentioned earlier about drafts to your poetry, and you mentioned about a poem that started off with 4 lines, went to 100 lines, and then went back to 4 lines.
Marianne Moore's poetry. Yeah.
For you personally, do you keep previous drafts, or do you just throw them away?
No, 100%. No one else will see them, but I'm very meticulous about dating drafts. Back in the day, it would be on pieces of paper. Now it's word process. But I would label them draft 1, draft 2, draft 20, and I would keep that whole backlog in one document, the poems document. I would then have another folder with all the latest drafts. They would be used for submissions, grouped into 5. I have a spreadsheet that my kids laugh at me all the time because it's just ridiculous, all the dates of like 20 years of submissions. So organisation doesn't come very naturally to poets, I don't think. but it's really important. But Castle was complete opposite. He would just type poems up and then send them out. He wouldn't keep the originals, which is to me is just I couldn't handle that. So there are different ways of doing it. For me personally, meticulous note keeping, yes.
Excellent. Any other questions? No? Luigi, would you like to? Yeah. So, can we just before this poem? Thank you very much for your time today, Luigi. It's been a very thoroughly interesting conversation, and thank you to the audience for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you both. So, my second poem. The first poem is from my booklet, it's only a private, called Yes. This is Even God Gets Distracted Sometimes. Mark sent me this image. There's a printout of there, and you can check me out at the table. 15 years ago, and as soon as I saw it, I reflected on myself as a parent, and this is only semi-autobiographical. It is called What Old Father Earth Asked of His Daughter. My daughter, come and play. No, my father, I cannot stay, but I have built a world for you. I'm sorry, father, it will not do. Well, what of the trees that dance in the breeze? I am sorry, father, they will not please. And what of the cave where sprites rave? I am sorry, father, I do not crave. What of the stream where fish strobe and beam? I am sorry, father, I am not keen. Then tell me, child, what do you need? What can I make to keep you a seed? I am sorry, father. I need the sky, where my mother is free to fly. I need the sea, where grandmothers sift. It is not you, it is you. You are not to blame. You are to blame. Not you. But father and daughter are not the same. You build on earth and you call it home. My kin and I, we must rove and we must roam. Then I will rumble and I will quake. I will destroy and I will unmake. I will cave in. I will tear down. I will burn and I will drown unless, oh child, oh daughter, you stay. Oh no, my father, not even a single day. Thank you so much for listening, folks. Have a lovely evening. Have a lovely life. Please see me in my book.